The truth is, everybody hates conflict. Everybody has conflict. And
True.
really, everybody wants to learn how to handle it in a healthy way. So it
Yeah.
ends up having a good outcome. And research shows that when we assign motives to other people, we are only accurate 20% of the time.
What? Welcome to the show today. You are in the right place. As always, when you're here with me, we are still in the Your Work Matters series, and we're tackling a topic that's relevant to both work and our personal relationships. Today, we're with my friend Donna Jones, and we're sharing the truth about conflict, what common behaviors will destroy your relationships, both personal relationships and work relationships. And speaking of conflict, what my husband finally had to confront me about after all these years. It's a great one. Now, side note for everyone watching me, the video can be a little bit wonky. We had some Wi-Fi issues when we were recording. So if you notice some weird cuts, like things are missing, things are totally missing. We did the best we could. We can fix this thing and make it sound great for the audio. Everyone who's just listening and not watching, they have no clue. But on video, it's really harder to sync things up and to make things work when they're wonky. So sorry about that. And seriously, this is it. I need you to listen up. The Coach School is about to close. If you've been on the fence about joining, I want you to let me know. We want to help you see if it's right for you. I want you to go to thecoachschool.com and sign up for a call with me or with someone on my team if I have another call at that point. We want to help you know if the Coach School is the right next step in your life. What we have learned from running the Coach School for years is sometimes people just need to get on the phone with us and talk it through and go, this is what I want to do. Is this my right next step? Or is this the next step for me that makes sense in my life right now? We get a lot of calls from people who have been trained as coaches, and then they hit the wall and realize, oh, I already worked with the 3 or 4 people that would be easy for me to work with. Now what? Because no one taught them how to build a business. Or we work with a lot of people who just have the idea to become a coach and need to learn how to coach and then build a business through it. If that's you, I want to talk to you. We're here to help. We want to help you. So go to thecoachschool.com. You'll see a pop-up for a call, or if you want, you can send a DM my way on Instagram, and I will see it, and then we'll set up a call, and we'll find out if the Coach School is the right step. It might be the right step, but it might not be. So let's figure it out together. Okay, now after we talk with Donna, it's time for coaching. Today, I'm giving you 3 really easy practices that will help make your home and your life more organized. I'm kind of obsessed with the concept of what's the smallest amount of work I have to do to get big results, right? It's kind of like everything we're talking about with the habits. A lot of times there's just things that are going on in our environment that stress us out, that are difficult. And if we would just take 5 minutes to sort them, our lives would be so much easier. That's the sort of thing we're talking about today. I'm really excited about it. I will have to keep myself from going on and on about it. We'll keep it short. We'll keep it concise. We'll keep it good. Okay. And also for the final segment of the show, I'm bringing you a recommendation. I have a new favorite cosmetic purchase that you need to know about. Okay. Without further ado, here's my friend Donna. Donna, I am thrilled to have you on my show. We've been friends for years. We met years ago. I was a speaker at your church out in California, and I realized that the Lord just blessed Southern California. The weather's always perfect. Flowers are always blooming. It is really heaven on earth. I've been jealous of you for that for years. I thought we'd just come clean
Let's just get
right
that
now on
right
the
out of the way.
podcast. Yeah. Yeah. You're living the dream. But I wanted to have you on because your latest book is about conflict, and conflict is something that no one wants to talk about. Nobody wants to deal with. As an Enneagram 7, I like to say
Ooh.
I feel about conflict like I feel about cantaloupe. I don't want to be near it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to sense cantaloupe or conflict. So I'm facing my fears to bring you on to have you go, okay, it's not so bad. One of the things you talk about with conflict that I really enjoy because it ties into the emotional health aspect of this show is that conflict can serve as a platform for our development. Talk about that
Mhm.
just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. And really, to answer your question, the title of the book is Healthy Conflict, Peaceful Life. And I think it's that peaceful life thing that we all want, right?
Yeah,
Because all of us know, I mean, Allie, the truth is everybody hates conflict. Everybody has conflict. And
true.
really, everybody wants to learn how to handle it in a healthy way. So it
Yeah,
ends up having a good outcome. And when we don't, that's when we have all kinds of angst and we don't have any peace. We don't have any joy. We may function on the outside. We may, call our moms, go to the grocery store, make dinner, do the laundry. But like on the inside, we're obsessing over what we said, what they said. Why did they say
yeah,
that? Why didn't I say this? Oh, I should have said that. It just completely consumes us, and so it really takes us off task. It really diminishes the quality of our life, the quality of our souls, the quality of our relationships. I mean, it's really a big deal if we
totally.
don't know how to handle conflict a healthy way. So part of personal development is just, learning how to handle it so it has a good outcome.
I love that. I was talking to Tara Matson earlier this year on the podcast, and we were talking about how familiarity plays such a big um, part of our life and we don't realize it. So we'll stay in relationships that subconsciously feel comfortable because they
Mhm.
remind us of relationships in our past. We won't go for a promotion because it was taught to us in childhood, for instance, like, women don't go for those things, right? So I wonder if with conflict, it kind of works that way too. If your parents were screamers, you only feel comfortable screaming and dealing with conflict. Or if your parents just smiled and gritted their teeth and said nothing's wrong and we don't have feelings, right, in this house,
Right.
if that's how people feel like they need to deal with it, what did you learn when you were researching for this book?
Yeah, that is so true. We're products of our environment, obviously. And to your point, if we grew up with parents that are screaming, either we just end up repeating, even though we say, I will never be like my mother,
Yeah.
then we hang our heads in shame because we're like, there I go again. I just yelled at my kid. Or we go to the opposite end of the spectrum and we say, I never want to scream. And so what ends up happening is we know we need to say something. We don't want to scream, but we haven't learned how to find our voice in that healthy middle place. In the
Mm,
book, I talk about something I call the conflict continuum, and everybody is somewhere on this conflict continuum. So on one side, we have the people that are the avoiders, and those are the people that are like, I hate conflict. I just want peace. Just give me
yeah.
peace at all costs, right? And on the other side of the continuum are the attackers. And those are the people that will just
Hmm.
tell you what they think. They're really straightforward. And sometimes they can even be mean and cruel and hurtful, right?
Yeah.
Neither of those extremes, the avoiders or the attackers, is a healthy way to handle conflict. The
Mm,
sweet spot in the middle are the addressers. So these are the people who don't avoid a conflict or attack. They talk about the issue by just addressing the issue in a healthy way. And so a lot of the book is just talking about where's the sweet spot? How do you learn the sweet spot? So,
yeah. I love that concept. I love the idea of a dresser. I remember when I was doing, it's funny, God always has me learn things from my life through writing books. I'm sure it's the
yeah.
same way for you and
Yep.
preparing sermons. But I remember doing a ton of research on relationships and marriages and how a marriage without conflict is actually, it can be a red flag because
Mhm.
to be alive and to be around other people, you're going to have conflict, but you need to like have self-awareness to know what's going on in your head. And then you need to learn to bring things up, to address things in a really healthy way, like the soft start. How you start is how it's going to finish. So if you start soft, there's a great opportunity for this to go well. But if you go in with guns blazing, it's all going to blow up on you. So, like, using the soft start. And I think also what you're talking about of what are the familiar patterns? How do
Mhm.
I make sure I don't just blanket avoid them and stay away from everything? And how do I make sure I don't fall into them and address them in a healthy way? Give us an example of someone, from maybe from your book, or someone that you know and that you've worked with through the years, someone that has handled conflict in an unhealthy way and learned to be a healthier addresser in it.
Ooh,
Or
I will
maybe it's
give you
you.
yeah, I will.
Okay.
This is from our first year of marriage.
Yeah.
So, we've been married, forever now, but our very first year of marriage, we both worked insanely long hours. But we had a nightly ritual like every couple does, and we would come home really late at night. We'd get our jammies on, we'd sit on the couch, we'd turn on the TV, we'd watch about 10 minutes of whatever show was on. We'd get up, go into the kitchen, get ourselves a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Allie, not even the flavor changed. I mean, we were so predictable. I mean, it was
You
ridiculous.
were.
So one night we're in our jammies, we're on the couch, TV's on. My husband gets up, goes into the kitchen. I know exactly what he's doing. I hear the freezer open. I hear the whole thing. So he walks back into the family room with one bowl of vanilla ice cream. And I
Uh-oh.
was like, where's my bowl of vanilla ice cream? And as innocently as can be, he goes, what do you mean, your bowl of ice cream? I was like, hun, this is not rocket science. We do this every single night. How could you not know? I mean, there's no deviation here. And he said, Donna, how would I know you wanted ice cream unless you told me? Well, Allie, I don't know to this day. I mean, in retrospect, I think, what set me off about this? But I don't know if I was hangry. I don't know if I was tired. I don't know if I was PMSing. It was something. So I shot off the couch. I stomp into the kitchen. I'm jerking open the freezer door. I mean, I'm like a crazy woman. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I have married the most insensitive, clueless man. So he decides he's going to take out the trash. So he goes outside. You had to pass the kitchen window. And I see him. It's summertime. Our window is open. He comes
Yeah.
back to the kitchen window and he puts his face right up to the screen. He gets this big smile on his face and he says, expectation without communication leads to frustration. And I started laughing out loud. And I said, did you just make that up? He goes, yep, just thought of it. And
That's going to be a sermon next week.
that's going to be a sermon. And here's the funniest thing is that a lot of our conflicts can be preempted
Mm,
if we communicate up front. It's like what you just said, it's the soft start.
yeah.
So if I had just said when JP was getting ice cream, hey babe, would you mind getting me a bowl too? Instead of making an assumption, thinking that he was going to read my mind, getting frustrated when he didn't read my mind.
Yeah.
So I went, I handled that just really poorly, but we learned from it. And that's the key because none of us are going to do it perfectly. So you learn. And I think part of learning with expectations, because sometimes I hear women say, well, that's great, but I don't know I don't always know what my expectations are. I'm not quite sure,
Yeah.
which is a valid, that's valid because sometimes we have to
Mm,
have our expectations go unfulfilled before we can trace it back and say, okay, hang on for a minute. Am I frustrated or angry or hurt or upset right now because I had an expectation that went unfulfilled? And if so, then we
oh,
have to ask ourselves, this goes back to your personal development question.
yeah.
We have to ask ourselves, did I communicate this expectation?
That's really good, Donna, because I mean, it's just self awareness is the key
Mhm,
here. I'll tell you,
mhm,
in terms of self awareness, two things I've done that has helped the level of conflict in my marriage. One is I started warning my husband when I was going into PMS, and
this
like
is
just give
good.
him a heads up. And I
Yep.
remember telling him at first, I'm going to tell you something. You cannot use this against me later. But I'm going to tell you this because it's going to be good for you. You could stay out of trouble and you won't wonder what's wrong with me. I am about to have PMS. And my husband go, ooh, thanks for the heads up. And sometimes, because full disclosure, I am right now. And we had a pipe freeze because everything's frozen in Nashville. And he said something to me and I came back at him and he was like, oh, I forgot. Let me just back away slowly. You are good. You're right, babe. Like I'm out of here. And we've just been married so long. He's like, I'm gonna avoid unnecessary conflict, and that's been great for me. A second, probably more important thing I've learned to do is I have learned to stop being afraid. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. Let me start it this way. I've realized that throughout a marriage that's always been very happy, and I've never been afraid of my husband, I was afraid of telling him things that bothered me because I was
Mhm.
afraid he would be angry. And the only reason I was afraid he would be angry is because I grew up with a stepfather who used to get angry. But I realized I had to stop assuming that if I express, hey, I don't want to do this anymore to a man, he's going to be angry about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for
Oh,
him,
Allie. Yeah.
yeah, for him, it's something small and it's bothered me throughout our whole marriage. If I change my mind about something, he will come in and go, I thought you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. And when he says that, he means, oh, you changed your mind. That's so interesting. We're going to a different restaurant, or, you know, we're using this plumber to fix our frozen pipe. But when he started with, oh, you changed your mind, or when he starts with, oh, I thought you said you were going to do this, I hear your I hear judgment in his voice. I
Mhm.
hear it like I'm doing something wrong. I hear it like I'm in trouble. All these years it's bothered me and I've never said a thing. And then finally I walked in the bedroom and said, hey, this has nothing to do with you. This has everything to do with me.
Mhm.
But when you say this, I take it this way. And I said, I know you don't mean it that way. You're sweet and loving and wonderful, but I hear it that way. So from now on, instead of saying this, can you say, hey, I see you changed your mind about X, Y, and Z? And of course, he needed a few minutes to express to me that no, he never meant it that way. But then he agreed. Yeah. I mean, he said, I may still do it that way and I'll need you to catch me, but I'll do my best to try. And what it's done is it's lessened the amount of conflict in our
Mhm.
marriage because when he would say, I thought you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z, I was mad all day and then I would pick fights. But just
Oh.
taking that one thing away,
Mhm.
it stopped the conflict because I'm not secretly mad all the time from him saying a sentence that triggers me. Does that make sense? I
Oh,
felt I
Allie.
felt
Okay, I
odd
can tell you.
stumbling around it. Okay, I'll
No,
let
no, no.
you take the mic.
No, your listeners are nodding their head. And
Okay.
what you basically did, there's a chapter in the book called it, it, How to Make Things Worse Rather Than Better. And it's
Yeah.
basically the 10 mistakes,
Yeah.
the 10 most common mistakes. In that story, you actually illustrated one of the biggest mistakes, but then you also illustrated one of the biggest strengths by how you flipped that. So let me tell you what one of the biggest
Okay.
mistakes is, and that is assuming the worst before we
Mhm.
have all of the facts. And so what will end up happening is someone will say something, someone will look at us a certain way. And by the way, all of this isn't just about marriage, it's about our kids, it's about our friendships, it's about our
Totally.
coworkers, it's about our parents, it's about our siblings, all human relationships, right? So they do something and our brains are wired to make sense of things.
Mhm.
So we tell ourselves a story about why
Yep.
they said that, what they meant by that. And research shows that when we assign motives to other people, we are only accurate 20% of the time.
What?
No,
Wow,
20%.
that's crazy.
And
Even
Allie,
people we know closely.
okay, it only goes up to 30% if you are in a very close, strong marriage.
That's
Which,
crazy.
okay, so 70%
Yeah.
of the time to 80, what we are thinking
Wrong.
somebody else is thinking or the reason they did something is just flat out wrong. So this is why when we assume the worst,
Mm-hmm.
it actually is very damaging because then we're operating that everything we say from that point on is through the filter of assuming something that's probably not accurate. Everything we
Yeah.
do is through the filter of something that's not accurate. And also, so that's on our end. So that's we're shooting ourselves in the foot. But on the other end, when people that we are in a relationship with believe or know or sense that we are assuming the worst about them, then that is detrimental to our relationship because nobody wants to be painted with a brush of negativity. Like I don't want to
True.
be in a relationship with a friend who's going to always think the worst of me. Or it's why if we always believe the worst about our kids, then they start thinking, well, why should I even try to do the right thing? She's going to just assume I'm doing the worst thing anyway. So why even try?
Totally. And then they go and
Or
do the worst thing because
and
they
then they
think
can
that's
do the
what we
worst thing.
think.
Right. Or with our
Yeah.
spouses, they think things like, with her, I can't win for losing. So it's really damaging when we assume the worst. But the way you flipped that is that you became aware of what you were thinking. And then you did the soft start. You started with, I know this is not what you mean. But this is how I hear it. And you talked about you, right? And then you gave him an option. Could you say it this way? And all of those things that you did is exactly how you have a hard conversation and make it turn out well. You start off with affirming the relationship, by saying something like, you're a great kid and I love you. You're an important part of this management team. Or, you're
Yeah.
my dear friend. And, I want us to work this out. You affirm the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and then you say how you're perceiving it, um, but assuming the best. And then you give, somebody an option. So
Yeah.
you were check, check, check. You did everything right.
Well, I'm so proud. But it's funny because it took 26 years to get there.
Hmm.
For
Well, that's why I
26
wrote the
years,
book.
this has bothered me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I wrote the book because I don't want anybody to have to wait 26 years to get there.
It's
They can flip it open.
and also one thing I've been doing in my relationships to try to lessen conflict and to try to take better care of myself, which will have the end result of a stronger
Mhm.
relationship, is I have been saying, "Hey, I am trying to be more self-aware. I'm I'm learning how things affect me. So I like the same thing. I realize you don't mean it this way. But when this is said, I hear X. Is is this true? Is this accurate? Tell me the story behind it. And what I'll do, especially with my husband, is I'll say, I know that if I don't tell you the things that bother me, I will be in a bad mood and I'll take it out on you. And so I just
Mm.
kind of lay out there and I go, I'm supposed to tell you the little things so we can quickly deal with it and we can wrestle through it. Otherwise, I will stuff it inside and I'll be in a bad mood and you won't know why I'm in a bad mood. And then you won't want to hang out with me and then it'll be awkward. And so I'm kind of just explaining in advance, like, I'm practicing kind of expressing all these little things because I'm learning the value of not being afraid of conflict and going, this little thing annoys me and let's work it out. And he is beginning to do that too. Like he said, listen,
Mhm.
there's one big thing in our marriage. And I say this with all the love of Jesus, but I need you to never talk to me about the garbage again. And I was like, what do you mean? I have I have two big anxieties in this house. Frozen pipes, which we're dealing with right now. Thank you, weather. And having too much garbage that will fit in the two garbage bins that get picked up every week. We got a lot of people in this house. And he's like, your stress over can we fit all the garbage in the garbage cans? It causes a lot of conflict. And I need you to never talk about garbage again. Just trust me to fit it all in the cans. And I was like, okay. And I didn't realize how annoying it has been for him all these years. But with me starting to be like, hey, I'm gonna start telling you all the little things so we can wrestle through it together and we can work on a plan together. And then for him to be like, I do have a bone to pick with you, actually. And it's about garbage. It's been so helpful because for me as an Enneagram 7 and him as an Enneagram 3, we will just link arms and skip off into the future together, but not talk about conflict, not deal with hard things. We'll just go about the business of running the family, the business of family.
Mhm.
So your book is super, super helpful in helping people who tend to avoid having those hard conversations because you just want to have fun and you don't want to ruin the mood, to just go ahead and address them so they don't build up to something bigger. Really,
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
Now, say you're dealing with a family member and things are tough, emotions are running wild. How do you approach it in a way that things don't blow up?
Yeah, that is such a good question because the fact is, nobody wants to deal with somebody else's messy emotions, right?
No.
We don't want to deal with an angry spouse. We don't want to deal with, a surly teenager. We don't want to deal with a cranky kid. We just don't. So what we end
Yeah.
up doing is we end up trying to shut them down because,
Mm,
I mean, we just don't want to deal with it. It makes our
true.
home chaotic. But what ends up happening, Allie, is that when somebody else is expressing a negative emotion to us, and it might even start off small, like just say something about the garbage,
Yeah.
or
Oh no.
uh, and it usually does start off small. To be honest
Yeah,
with you, it's the
totally.
small daily things that get to us.
Yeah.
So somebody starts off and they're saying something that's maybe hard to hear or negative, or maybe they're frustrated or they're angry. When we shut them down before they've had a chance to express this negative emotion by maybe fixing it,
Mm,
by dismissing it, by minimizing it, saying things like, oh, just get over it, or calm down, or it's not that big of a
it's not a big
deal. Or,
deal.
yeah,
Yep.
why are you making such a big deal about this? Or,
Yeah.
again, rolling our eyes, or Jesus doesn't want us to feel that way. Or,
Yes.
all those,
Yeah.
we tell our kids, don't say stupid. Jesus doesn't want you to say stupid or whatever. And we're kind of missing the point of the fact that they're trying to express an emotion to us.
Yeah.
What happens is subconsciously the person ramps it up, and they
Mm,
ramp it up because they're trying to be understood. And so if we are not listening, if we're shutting them down in any way, um, they'll ramp it up. And sometimes they'll get louder, they'll get more dramatic,
yeah.
or they may even ramp it up by being quieter, walking out. That's another way of ramping it up. It's just
Makes
in the
sense.
opposite direction. But what they're basically saying is, she's not getting me. So I need to do
Mm,
something that's a little bit more intense so that she'll figure out that I'm upset and I want her just to understand me. So they'll escalate, escalate, escalate until they get to the point where they think in their minds this is all really happens fast. She's just not going to get it. She's just not going to
mm-hmm.
get it. So I'm ending it. And
Yeah.
that's when people will say things like, just forget it. You never understand anyway. Or they just, they walk out and slam the door and you go, no, no, tell me what's wrong. And you go, no, no, I'm done. I'm done. Right. So this is what
Yep.
happens when we're dealing with somebody's difficult emotions. If we don't just listen, people escalate or they end always.
Mm,
So when we're dealing with difficult things, the best thing to do is just listen. Because if we can listen empathetically and just understand, and side note, understanding does not mean agreement.
amen to that.
Understanding just means understanding. So, and I think that's where we get tripped up too, because we start to listen, and then somebody's saying something we don't agree with, and then we jump in. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
the reason I did that was, well, I don't know. I don't think that, then all
Yeah.
of a sudden things are starting to escalate again. So listening really diffuses conflict.
That's such a great point. I can see places where I've had conversations with my kids where
Mhm.
they'll shut down. Conversations with coworkers. One of my sons, it's funny, he was going through a really it's not funny at the time. It wasn't funny then. He was going through a really tough time. And every time he would come to me to talk, I would do the Enneagram 7 and I would reframe
Mhm.
it and put a silver lining on it. And
Yes,
finally he said,
yes.
I need you to not reframe this
Mhm,
and tell me how I can turn it around and make it okay. I need you
mhm.
just to listen to me for a little bit. And I was like, oh, sorry.
Wow.
Um, and I think for people with a bent like mine of, I don't want to go there in pain because I don't want to get stuck in pain. If I'm going somewhere sad, I could get stuck there forever, and that makes me want to run away. And so I
Mhm.
really had to work hard to go, it's okay. I'm going to sit with this person in it.
Yeah, well, what I did was similar to you, but I would try to fix things immediately. I would just go straight into fix mode,
Yep.
or I would go in with my kids in particular, I would go in, let's learn a lesson mode. So,
Oh
it
no.
was like, this is how this can be a teaching opportunity,
Yeah.
which is like,
Teacher's going to teach.
yeah, I just got to teach. And, again, then they didn't feel understood. And, I finally had to learn, yeah, there's a lesson to this because we
Yeah.
all want our loved ones, to learn the lesson, or we all want to help fix something. I mean, we have good motives, but the key is that if we listen first and they feel understood, then we have the opportunity down the road to teach the lessons or to help them fix it or whatever. And emotions have been diffused. So
Yeah.
the listening is just key.
Ah, so good. Okay. Now, what I want to know, this is something I'm always surprised at authors when I ask the question is, what was a tidbit that you learned that surprised you about this when you were researching the book?
Hmm. Well, I think, oh, okay. It was from Dr. John Gottman.
Mm,
And you are
the
familiar with
best.
his work, his just insane work on relationships out of the University of Washington. And
Hmm.
he found he could predict the success or failure of a marriage in one weekend. Now, and interestingly, what he found the key to a successful marriage is actually the same key to successful parent and child relationships, successful friendships, successful extended family relationships. I mean, it's all relationships really. You can really extrapolate. And what he found is if people paid positive attention to each other, they would make it. Now, see, I thought it was going to be something like, did they share, were they good communicators? Did they share the same goals? Did they, I would have had a list of things that I thought were going to prove to be essential to have a successful relationship. But it was
Yeah.
really just, did they pay positive attention to each other? Now,
Hmm.
here's the reason this is so important as it relates to conflict is because in our culture, we've stopped noticing, right? Think about it. We're on our cell phones. We're not looking at people. We're looking at screens.
Hmm.
We're watching TV. We're trying to multitask everything. Um, and so we've stopped noticing. And to be noticed is in our DNA. So if somebody doesn't notice us, it's like, well, I don't exist and we need to exist and matter. So what
Yeah.
people will do is they will do anything to get attention, even negative things. That's why a child, if you're not paying attention to them, will resort to something negative just so you'll pay attention. A
Right.
spouse, if you're not paying attention to your spouse, they'll get really cranky. And you're like, why is my spouse so cranky? Well, it's sometimes because they don't feel like they're being attended to. So, this idea of just, am I paying attention to the people in my world? It is huge because it is one of the single most important factors that will not only assure that you have a successful relationship, but also take a lot of the conflict that we think is quote unquote normal in our lives.
Yeah.
It'll take probably half of that away.
Really? Okay, that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, it's
I love
huge.
it that I asked this question. Okay, that's so fun. Okay, speaking of fun questions, couple more. Enneagram number.
Uh, I think I'm a three. I think I'm a three. I know I was a three when I was a little girl, so I'm assuming I'm still a three now.
I
Hopefully,
can
I'm an
see that. I can see that.
older, wiser three.
Now, as a three, does addressing conflict come easy to you? Because, my husband's a three and he's very, let's just keep moving on in the future and well, let's not worry about it. Or is that your default? Or is your default naturally, well, no, let's address it and let's deal with it.
I think my natural is address it. Um,
Nice.
but now my husband and I were just talking about this. I do think that the way we deal with conflict is a little bit dependent on who we're having a conflict with.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're going to deal with conflict a little differently with our spouse and our children than like say a coworker sometimes. So
Yeah.
or like an extended family member. So the level of trust, the level of intimacy sometimes will impact how we handle things. But yeah, I think as an Enneagram 3, I'm just by nature a little bit more of an addresser. I'm not super afraid of conflict. Um, and I think too, just because of practice, I
Mhm.
have learned, and see, this I really believe, Ellie, is that so many of us think that conflict is bad because we have never learned to work through conflict in a way that makes it turn out good.
True.
And even
Yeah.
the illustrations that you were talking about with your husband, you have started to learn like, oh, look, when I talk about this on the front end, it makes things turn out good. So
Totally.
it's like it's you are practicing that muscle and it's like it's become easier for you, right? Because you're saying like,
Mhm.
oh, there's really great benefits to this. And that's really the point of the book is that if you
Yeah.
have healthy conflict, you can have a peaceful life. And and the subtitle is A Biblical Guide to Communicating Thoughts, Feelings, and Opinions with Grace, Truth, and Zero Regret. And that's what we're all kind of wanting to do, needing to do in order to have the relationships that we want.
Totally. And I think it's okay if it's awkward at first and feels
Yes.
difficult. I mean,
Yes.
it's definitely been a fumbling around process for me. I found it awkward and difficult even to tell the stories and fumbled around for how do I even tell this story and explain it. So I think just realizing that awkwardness and fumbling around as we try to for those of us who haven't been addressers to become
Hmm.
addressers, it's okay if it's a little bit messy at first. You're still going to get good
Yeah.
results, right?
Yes.
Okay,
That is
last
so.
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that is exact. That is so true. And also, I think it's okay to say, I'm trying to communicate this in a really kind, grace filled, clear way. And I'm just not very good at it. So, just at least know my motives are right, even if my methods are not quite there yet. Just,
Totally.
be honest.
Okay, last question. A book you're loving right now.
Okay, I am reading a book by Tozer, A.W. Tozer. I have
Hmm.
never read a book by Tozer. Almost every Christian that I know that is, has been a Christian for a long time talks about Tozer. And for some reason, I just have never read a Tozer book, but I'm reading his book on prayer. And it
Oh,
is really, really opening my eyes to some things. Can I just tell you one little quick thing that I'm
please.
learning?
You know I love
Okay,
little quick things. Yes.
there's that passage of scripture in Philippians where it says, and by everything with prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Well, in this book, he makes a big deal about that. The first few words, in everything by prayer. And
Mm,
he was just talking about how that should be on every boardroom, every kitchen wall, every, office, every dashboard. And I've just been really thinking about that, Allie, just in everything by prayer. Just my daily life. Like Donna, is it in everything by prayer? It's really, really wrecked me in the most beautiful of ways.
oh, I love that. That's why I ask these questions because I love little tidbits like that. Okay, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me at donnajones.org is my website.
Mhm.
They can find me on Instagram at Donna A. Jones because I do have the last name Jones. So that's pretty common. So Donna A. Jones. They can order my book everywhere you order books. It will be coming out February 20th. So you can pre-order it if you're listening to this before February 20th, and you can order it everywhere books are sold after that.
Well, I am a huge fan of you. I love this book. I think this book is so important. It's well researched, it's laid out well, it is biblical, but
Mhm.
it's also not fluffy. I think sometimes there's a lot of books out there that get the biblical aspect right, but when it comes down to the practical tools of life, it gets a little bit fluffy. And I like it that it's not fluffy. I like it that it's well researched and you really bring the goods in this book. I hope you're super proud and I hope everybody gets it and reads it and awkwardly trips over being more self aware and dealing with conflict so they can have that peaceful life. So, best of luck to you in launching this book. And I'm so proud of you and love this book. And thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, Allie, thank you so much for having me. I am your fan, and this has been an honor.
How great was Donna? She is just a wealth of info. Of course, I'm giving away her book. You know what to do. Tag me, tag Donna in an Instagram story as you're listening to this podcast, and I'm giving away 4 copies of her book. Okay, let's do coaching. Like I said, I'm obsessed with little tiny things we can do that make life better. Today, I want to tell you about 3 small practices that will make your life and your home more peaceful and organized. Number 1, with your finances. I want you to go in and streamline all of the memberships and subscriptions that you don't use. If you're a member of Called Creatives, do not streamline that. I'm kidding, not really. This is software. It is a food delivery service that hasn't been used in 3 months. It is the monthly car membership to get a car wash that your husband signed up for and never used. Don't ask me how I know. That's important because that's going to save a ton of money. And I've been talking to my oldest son who is, in the working world and doing great. And we had this conversation about, as he gets more raises all the time, not to let lifestyle creep take over and have him just spend more and more, but to put that money into debt payment to pay his car off early and then savings and things like that. So I'm going to assume you're already taking care of your debt. I'm going to assume you're already taking care of putting money in savings. So, with that money that you save from frivolous subscriptions and memberships, just spend it on yourself. Treat yourself. You deserve it because I guarantee you're not taking care of yourself as well as you could. So, you have my permission. Cut out the excess and spend it on you. It's quality investment time. Another thing you can do with finances, make sure that you're automating your bill payments, make sure you're automating your savings and your investments every month. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. We can automate our tithe with our church every month, however you want to do it. Automate as much as possible. The only thing I can't automate in my household is my electric bill every month. And I once forgot to pay it, for, I don't know, like 7 days. And they sent a letter that they were about to turn my electricity off. So I had to literally put a child in my yard. This was 2 years ago and say, hey, if you see someone from the electric company, do not let them turn our power off. I'm going to go pay the bill in person right now. It's ridiculous. Why they don't let me automate it, I'll never know. Okay, so that's finances. Number 2, I want you to make sure that you really do have a home for everything. One of my best hacks is we have a kitchen cabinet door with 4 command hooks where our keys live. I like it that they're hidden. Some people use a plate on their counter. I'm like, less clutter, the better. I have enough clutter to deal with. Now, one of my sons, I won't say who, he always threw his keys down and it stressed me out, really stressed me out. But I'm a smart mom. I know how to, you know, choose my battles. So one day he called me after recently buying a car, and with this car, he only has one set of keys. And he said, I'm just going to chit chat with you while I search for my keys so I don't get stressed out. And we talked on the phone for 15 minutes. He finally found them, and I didn't say anything. But he texted me a couple hours later and goes, I just want you to know that I just bought some command hooks. Command hooks are amazing. So, whatever it is, whatever constantly gets misplaced, keys, wallet, whatever it is, just take 5 minutes and develop a system and make a home for that. It will save you the stress of looking for things. It'll save the stress of you having to nag other people to put it somewhere. I love developing systems. I say that systems are sexy because they give us what we want. A place for everything is a system that's going to save you time. It's going to save you heartache. It's going to save you arguments with your family members. They can't find their stuff. So go through, think about all the things that constantly get misplaced, not saying you do, saying other people in your household may do that. I love systems. I say that systems are sexy because they give us what we want. And having a system for things that normally get lost in your house, definitely sexy. I'm not saying that you ever misplace anything. I'm saying the people that you live with probably do. Right? Okay. Number 3, final one. I want you to follow the 1 in, 1 out rule. So if you purchase one item, you can need to donate or toss or sell another thing. For example, I took my team to Orlando a couple of weeks ago. We go twice a year, and I always buy a new mug from Disney if I see one that I love. And when I do, I give an old mug to Goodwill or to my oldest son, who will take my old mugs because we don't need 75 mugs. We all have 75 mugs and we do not need them, right? So I will say that I do buy a lot of mouse ears on every trip. And in full honesty, because I go a lot, I take my team twice a year, I take clients twice a year. Lisa and I do a called creatives planning trip once a year. I do not throw out all my old ears. I'm saving those for my future granddaughters to play with and destroy one day. So I don't always go by the 1 in, 1 out rule, but for most things I do. It just makes things easier. The strategies I told you about today are here to make life easier. They're here to reduce stress, to reduce heartache, and to make life just a little bit happier. So feel free to edit them as you need to, make them work for you. But seriously, if there's one takeaway, buy those command hooks. It's so much better. Okay, now recommendation. Here is my latest purchase that I don't know how I lived without. Here it is. It is amazing. It is lovely. It's Bobbi Brown, long wearing cream shadow stick in bone. Now, here's the thing. It's very light because I am very pale. There's so much bronzer going on every day just to give me a little bit of color. So I use the bone shade. It's a really neat pencil layout it rolls up. And I use it right below my brows. And I use a little bit on the insides of my eyes by my nose just to lighten up those areas. Those areas can get a little bit of dark. It's not concealer consistency, so you don't want to use it as concealer. When it first arrived, I forgot what it was and I used it as concealer and I was like, this stuff is terrible because it doesn't blend really well. But it is wonderful, especially right below your eyebrow to lighten things up. It is really smooth, but like I said, not concealer. But it is one of those high quality cosmetics where just the smallest bit of it is going to give you a ton of pigment and a ton of coverage. If I could go back to my 25-year-old self, 25-year-old Allie, and say, hey, don't waste money on grocery store brand cosmetics because you run through them so fast. You go through 4 or 5 inexpensive products in the time it would take you to get through one expensive product that's going to just look a lot better too. But regardless of how 25-year-old Allie bought her makeup, let's talk about you. I have a special story for you who are watching on YouTube. Audio listeners on the podcast, they're not even going to get to hear this story. This is a special gift for you. And it's this. Remember how I looked a little weird back in January, right? I just looked weird. Like I was filtered. My team said, oh, you look ethereal. Ethereal's not good for a look. I was super aggravated that I bought a nice camera that's supposed to kind of upgrade the video quality for YouTube because, it needs to be exceptional. It needs to be really good. And so I'm planning, do I complain online that this camera stinks? Do I send it back? And finally, I had a moment of clarity and thought I should just contact the company and set up a call, right? To see what's going on with this camera. I get on this call. It's a video call. And I have a kind of prideful attitude where I'm like, listen, I've been running my company for 15 years. Don't treat me like I'm stupid. There's obviously something wrong with this camera. I mean, I didn't say it, but that's my attitude. I quickly tell him what's wrong. And the first thing this man says to me, I kid you not, he says, look at your camera lens. You did you for sure take the protective film off of it? And I was like, of course I took the protective film off of it. And I look in the camera lens, and friend, I did not take the protective film off of it. That is what was wrong with my video all this time. It was a humbling experience. The Lord takes all of our dumb mistakes and uses them for our benefit. And the Lord and I had a little discussion about me being conscientious of details and my pride. So I wanted to tell you what was wrong. But regardless of me not being conscientious and my pride issues, I do want to circle back on the fact that it was a lesson in me sharing with you how awkward and how difficult it was in the beginning because I'm trying something new. And if you're trying anything new in life, it's going to be awkward and difficult. You may not forget to take the protective film off your fancy new camera, but whatever it is, we feel odd because it's different, because it's new. And in this life, we are constantly bombarded with messages that we should just get things already, right? Like if you just sit down and think about it, you're going to feel confident and you're going to have motivation to do what you need to do. It doesn't work that way. What happens is we need to take action. And when we take action over and over again, we get better at something. So when we take action at first, we're going to be bad. And then we're going to take action a little bit more and we're going to get better. We'll take the protective film off or whatever it is in your case. And then we keep taking action and practicing something and doing something and we're okay at it. And then one day we wake up and we go, wow, I am great at this. I am so good at this. And it comes naturally. And then we feel confident. But if we wait until we feel confident and we wait to do anything until we know that we can nail it and be great, we're never going to do anything. So if you are waiting to feel motivated, if you are waiting to feel confident about doing something before you do it, I want you to just give yourself permission to do it badly at first. Let it be messy. Let it be awkward. Forget to take the film off the camera lens, but still share it anyway, whatever it is for you. Because the more you do it, you're going to get good. And then you're going to stay good for a little while. And then you're going to wake up and be like, wow, I'm great at this. That's where confidence comes from. It doesn't just happen from a feeling. It happens because of evidence. And evidence is built up when you take action. So keep taking action. Keep giving yourself permission to do things badly. Because once you do it badly for a little while, you're going to do it great. Why do I tell you all this stuff? Because I believe in what's inside of you. I believe that you are meant to do great things in this world. Some things people will know. Some things it's just between you and the Lord. But I know that He has created you to impact this world for good. That's why you're here every week. You're learning something that's going to help life be a little bit better. This week, we learned how to have healthy conflict, how not to avoid it, how to go into conversations the right way to get the result that we want at the end. And it all comes down to helping you live the life that God has called you to live and just learning something a little bit every day that's going to help you along the way. What I want to remind you of this week is if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling burnt out, keep going. I'm planning a series where we talk about stress. I don't know if it's going to be a coaching series or an interview series, but I'm learning a lot about the effect of ongoing stress and the delayed stress reaction. And I think it's the answer to the question that I've had since the pandemic started of why are we all still doing so badly, right? What's going on? And I want to talk to you a lot about that this year. I really want to work with that because I think it's a key part of our emotional health. But the short thing that I want to tell you today is what I tell you every week, to keep stepping up, keep showing up, keep loving well. Because no matter how stressed you are, no matter how burnt out you're feeling, you cannot break a woman who gets her strength from God. Thank you for letting me coach and equip you every week. I will be back with you on Monday, and I hope you have a great day. Let's get on it.
I think I froze.
Oh, you're frozen again. Am I frozen?
I didn't hear anything.
And cut.